from the grassroots, what role is she playing towards making sure that those voices are brought to the table? What is the private sector doing? What is the government, my brother there, Kubok, Agriculture Transformation Office? So if each actor were really to commit and say, I am doing 1, 2, 3, I can be held up to account, to 1, 2, 3, then I'm sure we'll not be able to leave anyone behind. But unless, of course, we do that, and we challenge ourselves to actually do that, which we are called to do in the different organizations, institutions that we lead, we'll continue talking. We'll have the land and the fourth agricultural summit, and then we'll just continue talking about these things, and nothing is going to change.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mwenda. A big round of applause for him. We've just had a conversation there. Let me get to feel whether we are having the same conversation here. Let me listen to you. What are you getting from this conversation from the panelists?
Thank you, Johnson. My name is Catherine Ryungu. I am a journalist and also a farmer. And what I'm hearing really is leaders seated right there in front of us, bouncing questions to us instead of giving us solutions.
Whoa. Did you hear that? We're here to get answers, but questions are also being bounced back to us. Okay.
Thank you so much. Like I said, my name is Emma Murangiri, CS Advisor Crops. I wanted to relate to what the leaders are saying there with this component of bottom, the one that the president mentioned. And I think one of the things that I would add that we might want to do differently, especially as a private sector and the civil society, I've been in the NGO world for at least 20 years as well. And I think one of the things that we might want to do differently is the farmer voices. How do we bring out the farmer voices? Because when you look at most, say like 70% of the reports, there's the report of the farmers that attended the workshop, as well as what maybe us as the technocrats might be also thinking. But I think if going forward, the next 5, 10, 50 years, we can literally see the actual speaking of the voice of the farmer. Remember, they are researchers. They've been in this like for 25, 30, 50 years. That can also help us in the governance matters and the policy issues. So I'm basically saying, let the voice of the farmers be as authentic and as real as possible as we continue. Thank you.
The voices of the farmers. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Masi Monene. I run a business called Shamba Connect, and what we do is climate smart agriculture. And one of the things we do is livestock farming, and not just livestock farming, but we specialize in rabbit farming. Because with rabbit farming, you realize as we talk about milk production, cows, I'm hearing everyone talking about livestock in terms of cows and goats, but we live in Nairobi, and we get 90% of our food from out there. In Nairobi, people who do not even have land are able to rear like rabbits. But now the problem is you run the whole of Nairobi, the whole of Kenya, in fact, and there is no single factory that is able to turn rabbit skins. So as we talk about value chains, you see that you are wasting the rabbit urine, you see that you are wasting the rabbit skins, and we have factories that run cow and goat skins. So my question is, what are you doing around that? If you're talking about coming down to the farmer level, I'm constantly, myself and other rabbit farmers are constantly training young people who are rearing rabbits, but they're asking, where is the market? How can we value add? The manure, the urine, the skin, we all have that opportunity, but we want to hear, what are you going to do about it?
Okay. Let's check Menti, and I can see hands going up. Kubok, just be ready to respond to some of those comments. Let's see, Menti. There's a question here. What will our food system look like in 2040? And what governance systems do we need with such an outlook? Bwana Kubok.
Thank you, moderator. I want to appreciate the atmosphere in the house, the mood in the house. We're already being held accountable in the House as leaders. Thank you, Catherine, and Mercy, and a few others who have made comments since morning. Let me acknowledge one fact, that probably the long-standing paradox that food insecurity has been ever since independence, from where I stand, could be attributed to one or two factors, major factors. We don't lack technology. We don't lack human resource capacity. In fact, Kenya is at par with most advanced countries in terms of human resource development. But we have one or two contributory factors to the situation that is pervading in this country with respect to food insecurity and lack of the impetus to transform the food systems. One major one is lack of a culture or orientation of culture, action-oriented culture. We have not put in place a watertight culture of action-oriented thinking. We still plan, we still develop very impressive policies and strategies and action plans. But that drive towards that culture of action-oriented mindset is still a problem.
Kubok, let me cut you short a bit. Are we saying that we are the only people in the entire country who have this idea that we need an action-oriented culture, and those who are in charge have no idea?
My brother Johnson Mwakazi, I said from where I sit. So if there are people in this room, 1, 2, or 3, who are like-minded, I will not mind. Can any one of you stand up with me to that fact? That we lack that culture. Can you stand up with me?
Okay, we see. Okay, and by the way, just before you continue, there's a comment here. If it's...
I know most are not willing to stand.
Let's stand.
But
Let's stand.
90-95% are most likely going to stand with me, even if they are seated with that particular aspect.
Just a moment.
Thank you. My name is Sari Seppänen. I currently coordinate the SDG Partnership Platform, which actually we have a long history together with the ASNET being co-created together in 2020. And I very much appreciate all the advancements that this great team has really achieved throughout the few years. I just wanted to really, something that's really been always very perplexing to me. I think every time there is a summit on agriculture, a big meeting, 1 or 2 people will say, we've been discussing these things for about 30 years, if not more. And one of the very perplexing things for me is, where are the best practices around getting the farmers together? Because I definitely appreciate Dr. Ari explaining to us why we really need stronger farmer organizations, not only for, say, information to, for information about markets to filter in, but it's also in terms of platforms of learning, picking up the best practices, even for soil health. Basically, anything culminates down to how the people on the ground, the producers, are able to share information and really get their voice heard, as we heard from the lady just before me. But I would really love to understand, where does it stop? What are the impediments, and where are the shining examples of getting there? And those are that's just one of the things that I really would love to understand more. Thank you.
And what I'm getting, Kubok, as you continue on, so we don't have that culture. But can we also say, wait a minute, this is the concern that we have, and we have best practices. Other countries have done it, we can also engage in. Instead of saying, we don't have, there's a problem.
I would appreciate that contribution from your side, but if you have the best resources, HR resources, we are more, we have a lot of opportunities. Kenya is a land of huge, immense opportunity, and very fertile soils. Even if the rains are not all that adequate, the waters are enough for us to be able to produce for our country. What I'm saying in short is that we just need a small push and adopt or agree to the fact that we need to act like yesterday. All right? My second point, Mwakazi, before probably is to add on what you asked my brother, Dr. Mailudha. Related to the same lack of action-oriented action, we seem to offer a lot of lip service. And I'm praying that at the end of this summit, we'll put more towards what we'll come up with in terms of a call to action and move beyond lip service. Let us enforce policy implementation. Let us support enforcement on the ground. Let us strengthen services to the farmers and other value chain actors. Let us monitor and evaluate our progress, because sometimes we put in place measures and interventions, but we don't monitor and learn from whatever information we get from the monitoring process. Mm-hmm. Let us learn from our failures, because sometimes we hardly remember we failed once and we don't learn lessons from our previous failures. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Kuboka. Makofi yake tafadhali. Thank you so much. And as we come to the tail end of our engagement, there's a question here for you, Ms. Agatha. What values should our national and county governments embrace to ensure no one is left behind? What should we do to sustain integration of such values in our food systems transformation agenda?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mwakazi. Now, let me just take you back to something that was mentioned here this morning, that 1 month ago we had an engagement with the president, specifically about some specific value chains that would create a lot of employment in this country. That is cotton, leather, which is the other one? Can I be reminded? Pyrethrum, very important value chains in this country. And something else that came up in that conversation is that we have a lot of production of green grams, and we have a lot of green grams in Tharaka Nithi. But incidentally, the Tharaka Nithi farmers are crying about market in this country. They don't know where to sell their green grams. And it happened that in the same room, and we don't need to be brought into this room so that we can identify a market. In the same room, there was a market for green grams. In fact, when the president was coming for that conversation, when that issue was being raised, the intention was to make the government buy green grams from there. But the private sector was there that could actually be able to buy the green grams. So what are we really saying? Is that we need to take this conversation forward. And that is where I want to step in as far as the county governments are concerned. I think it is important that the national government and the county governments, and I'm not talking about government, the two levels of government speak to each other. And most importantly, because the government is not in the business of doing business, the private sector presence in the counties is very important. And by private sector, I want to bring the farmers also. That it is important that the farmers congregate around value chains, and then we have a strong private sector presence. Let me just mention, because somebody said that we are throwing questions instead of offering solutions. Mm-hmm. What ASNET is doing at the county level is that we are cascading this outfit to the counties, so that at the county level we have an organized private sector presence. And we have already started doing this in Kakamega and Kisii. It's not complete. We want to move into the near future to Kisumu and some other counties in the Lake Region Economic Bloc. But I'm saying we are still very far away. This is something that we need to do in all the economic blocks in this country. We need a strong private sector presence that can actually engage effectively with the county governments. The county governments every year are doing a county integrated development plan. This is a strategic plan that is supposed to run for 5 years. But what informs the development of the CIDP? I think it is important that the CIDP is linked to the markets. No farmer in this country should produce something for which they don't have a market. And therefore, the private sector at the county level ought to speak very closely with the production units at the county. What are you producing and for which market? ASNET is comprised of associations. The Kenya Association of Manufacturers is a member of ASNET. And we need to speak very closely to the counties so that whatever is produced can find its way into the market. And I think this is something that we need to actualize other than keeping on, meeting in conferences and discussing this. I'm happy that at the national level, at least, we have the presence of ASNET. But I know from where I sit that we still need to do a lot of work to be able to reach the farmer. And we need to cascade and organize the private sector, and not just organize. It is very important that the capacity of the private sector is also built so that they can understand how to interact with the farmers at that level. So we need a lot of organization at that level. That is a function that has not been given to the counties. The right policies are very important for business to be able to move. And therefore, the policy development process is also very important. The private sector ought to be part and parcel of the policy development process. And I am happy that we have started this dialogue at the national level. It is something that I would want to see, even becoming bigger, that we can involve everybody. That's our theme, not leaving anyone behind. That we can involve all the actors in the policy development process so that for the private sector, we create an enabling business environment. We have a lot of opportunities for all the value chains, but we need the right policies by the national government, and at the same time, we need an escalated or a greater conversation at the production units that is within the counties. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Want to get a couple of comments from the audience, and then 1 minute to close for each of the panelists. And this is in regards to something that His Excellency spoke about, where we are living in this culture of problems, problems, problems. It's now time to move towards what is the solution that we can provide. This was at the Pan-African, let's take a look at that video. Let's take a look at that video there. Unfortunately, it's not here, but we'll get that towards the end. It's purely about focusing on a solution. So we have the challenges. What is that solution? And maybe let's start from this side. Any person with a comment in terms of a solution so that we can move the conversation forward. What is that tangible solution to say we are not going to leave anyone behind?
Thank you so much. My name is Ilham. I'm from the Bungoma County Agro-Dealer Association. I know you want us to talk about solutions, but can I just mention one thing about smallholder farmers, because I'm a smallholder farmer myself and I deal with smallholder farmers as well. And you talked about the solution being, amalgamating farmers and putting them in cooperatives and putting them in farmer associations. And I agree with that, but I don't understand why we are talking about farmer cooperatives and farmer associations as if it's a brand new thing. I mean, cooperatives have been in existence for longer than I have been alive in this country. So it has been there. The question we need to ask ourselves is, why are they not working? Why 30 years, 60 years down the line, farmer cooperatives are struggling and farmer associations are not working? What solutions can we come up with to ensure that this, we form stronger, like you were mentioning, stronger farmer associations? What is wrong with the current associations? What is wrong with the current cooperatives? So how can we fix it? Is it because of governance? Is it because of, what are the issues that these cooperatives are facing, and how can we fix them? As opposed to just talking about, cooperatives and associations as if it's a brand new thing. It is really not. It's older than, myself. And the other thing is about now solutions. I've attended quite a number of summits and conferences and all these kinds of things. And normally when we attend these things, we are hyped and we're informed and we're encouraged and motivated. And then after 2 days, we go back to wherever our destinations and nothing. It's all gone. The energy is all gone. So I think most of these summits and conferences, they need to end with an action plan. All of us here have come from different destinations, and we're going to go back home. How can we go back with an action plan? Every one of us here can do something at an individual level, at a business level, as a group level. For example, I came with my team of agro-dealer associations here from different parts of the country. If we go back to our destinations, what can we do as an agro-dealer association? What can you do as a business owner? What can you do as an individual? And I think that's the kind of action-oriented plan that we're talking about and one of the solutions that we're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just have about 10 minutes. Let's get down to the action plan.
Hi, my name is Shri from Kuza Biashara. Can I give you a high five? Well done. If I can take the liberty, ask you to give 3 recommendations. What do you think your voice as Agro Dealers Association is? Let's get productive.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're here. And I mentioned earlier on, I'm here to share my thoughts. As an agro-dealer association, we have a lot of challenges. And that's why we decided to come together and see if we can air our voices, come up with policies, come up with regulations. If we can actually regulate ourselves. The biggest challenge agro-dealers have right now is we don't have regulations. I mean, we have regulatory bodies. We have KEFIS, we have KEBS, we have the different bodies that are there. But for example, fertilizer is our biggest commodity and it remains unregulated, which is really sad. I mean, how can we ensure that the biggest commodity that helps farmers can be regulated? For example, just at the top of my head, one of the challenges we are facing as far as regulation and fertilizer is concerned is decanting. There are certain agro-dealers who are removing like 5 kgs from every bag and selling it to farmers, just to make an extra profit, you know? And there's no regulation. There's nobody monitoring that. At the end of the day, the farmer is getting 45 kgs. We're talking about food security and, you know, increased production. How will this farmer increase production when he's getting 45 kgs instead of 50 kgs? Who is monitoring that? Who's regulating that? Who's ensuring that the farmer is actually getting the right inputs, the correct quality, the right quantity? You know, nobody's doing that.
All right, thank you. Because of time, let's move very quickly to our panelists. Action plan. And just to play that video once again as we close, let's have that. There's a hand. It's because of time. All right, go ahead, 2 minutes.
I'll try and be brief. My name is Joyce Nyamoya. I am a member of ASNET. And in ASNET, we have constituted a project or program steering committee to deal with country agribusiness partnership framework. So instead of dealing with this, everybody doing the thing by themselves, can we come together and create a framework that can help us work in a cohesive strategic direction? Obviously, that will reduce the transaction development costs around production. Secondly, when Kubok, I met him today, nobody introduced me to him. But Agatha, you have to bear with me, and I'm sitting next to the chairman, so I think I'm safe. I told him that I don't attend meetings like this for the sake of attending. So with Bwana Kubok, ATO, ASNET, we're meeting Thursday next week with the idea that today is the first day of 100 days action plan. You have to confirm so that it's part of the meeting. So we will build on ongoing work that we are doing with ASNET, but from Thursday next week, we have a meeting at 10 o'clock at Kilimo House to take the ideas which have come here. I undertook that we will consolidate them before then, and that on that day we will move forward so that within 100 days, which will be September, we said September 4th, by the end of September, we will be able to report to ourselves the gains we have made. And then there is Mr. Amin is from GIZ. we talked on how can we leverage ongoing things so that the next time we meet, we are not saying further to our meeting at KICC. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A final one. Thank you so much. Makofi yake tafadhali. Thank you so much. We want to close because of time. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. I had already introduced myself, Dr. Sylvester Nami of JKU Arts. So, because I'm coming from the university, I would like to propose at least 2 action plans. One, here we have the private sector, and so we have private companies. We have so many students right now who are looking for attachments to learn the necessary skills to transform the agricultural sector, but they don't get these opportunities. And you are here. Can you therefore make it a point to allow most of these students doing agriculture in the universities to get access to your companies for attachment? And if there is a way in which we can actually regularize this, to have students doing projects and thesis in your companies to learn the right skills that they can use to transform our agriculture when they get out of school. Secondly, I am a biotechnologist, and I feel I've been left out. So I want to belong. The proposal that I want to put forward is that there's a question there, what will the food system be by 2040?
Exactly.
It is through the adoption of the modern breeding tools, including biotechnology, and I'm not ashamed of this, including genome editing, precision agriculture, and digitization, that will stop this country from speaking about food systems that they have been doing for the last 30 years. If you don't do that, after 30 years from today, you'll continue talking about food systems. And lastly is a question. So the cabinet secretary talked about the right to food. But he was catchy and said, in that constitution, there is no governance on the right to be fed. So does it mean the right to be fed has no responsibility from the government? And is the private sector playing a role to provide the necessary policy and propose that particular policy for the right to be fed?
Okay. Thank you so much indeed. We'll stop there for the remarks, but of course, please, any questions, comments via Menti, we'll have a record of that. Ladies and gentlemen, as we close, the panelists, please, you'll have only 2 minutes to just give your final remarks in terms of action plan. Voice, please, sound, please. Let's listen to His Excellency.
Good people, let me ask you, who said that Africa cannot be part of the solution? That when Africa is being discussed, it's only being discussed in the context of the problems. And our voices are limited to, oh no, you are victims of climate change. We will help you to manage situation. We will manage you to deal with adaptation. We will look for some little money for mitigation. We do not want to be in that corner. We want to be in the conversation about the solutions.
Solution, Mary. Let's start with you. Action plan as we move forward as a solution so that no one is left behind. 2 minutes.
Thank you. I will start with what Dr. Ari asked about the right to food and the right to be fed. The right to food is not the right to be fed. The right to food is the right to feed yourself in dignity. And what does this mean? there are relationships between government and its citizens. The right to food is about relationships. Government, citizens, private sector, consumers, everybody in the food systems. And the government has obligations on the right to food, and that is to respect, protect, and fulfill the right to food. In respect, they should not take any measures that hinder people to access food. In protect, they should take legal action and enforce laws that prevent third parties from violating people's right to food. And in fulfilling, and this is where I want us to focus on, there is facilitate and provide. Facilitate is to support or engage in activities that enable people to produce their own food or feed themselves. And one of the things that came out in the morning is support to smallholder farmers. Extension. I talk to farmers every day in my work, and two things they say are their main challenges: access to inputs and extension. They are facing many challenges and they need that extension. I think we need to look at extension, and it's been left to NGOs and private companies, but government, I think, needs to step in and fill in that gap. Policies also need to be responsive to the needs of the people. What do people need? Are we adapting to the current challenges that they are facing? Fiscal policies should not punish the poor. They should not prevent us from accessing healthy food or making compromises in the quality of food that we take. Also, social protection, and I'm glad it was spoken about this morning. Our farmers and vulnerable groups need to be protected in social protection. Thank you.
2 minutes, please, Dr. Ari.
Thank you, Makazi. Let me start by my sister there from the Agro Dealers Association. She did ask, why are we talking about cooperatives and farmers associations? Because this has been there. That is true. I'm sure we all know that the cooperative movement in Kenya was a lot stronger in the 60s and 70s. Something went wrong, and maybe that is what we should be asking ourselves: what went wrong? I'm sure we all know what went wrong, because one of them is governance. And this is what we need to fix, so that we do not have the same people running a cooperative for 30 years, 20 years. I'm happy the Kenya Kwanza government has started talking about coffee and dairy and tea, and talking about reinvigorating the cooperative movement, because that's where we need to go back to. So of course, my sister, yes, it is true, we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. We just need to fix what is broken. We used to have it, and people used to come to Kenya to learn. Now, action. I did say that we need to ask ourselves what we are doing in our corner. We could come up with an action plan, very beautiful, do a communicate, do a media conference and do all that. But unless we have it in ourselves to contribute to this sustainable food systems transformation in this country, it's not going to happen. So I would say, as a Kenya National Farmers Federation, what we are doing is that we are bringing farmers together from county to county, because farmers must speak in one voice. Our motto is that we are the farmers' voice. We want farmers to speak in one voice, to speak to the government at the national level and at the county level. And this is important because even before we go out to look at GIZ, either Amin here and others, we should ask our government, what are we doing? What is the government doing about Maputo Declaration, to which Kenya is a signatory? Are we committing 10%? And unless 10% of our GDP, unless we really have that, unless we are united and we are able to ask these questions, it's not going to change. And we need those questions so that farmers are not taken advantage by unscrupulous agro dealers.
Right.
If farmers are together, they're in cooperatives, they're in associations, they'll be able to take care of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mwenda. Thank you so much. Let's move to Bwana Leonard, and then I'll give Ms. Agatha the final moment to give us her final remarks. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll go back to my favorite highlight of my contribution today: action-oriented thinking and culture. That's number one. Number two, let us be persistent. Let us keep knocking doors. Let us go to the highest level possible to ensure that we have adequate resources to the sector. Again, 10% Malabo and Maputo, still lip service. Dr. Bimal, don't tire. Come to the highest level possible and ensure that you have the basket, 100% budgets to the interventions in food systems transformation. 3, we could be producing enough food in this country, but a good chunk of it goes to post-harvest losses and other value chain constraints. Probably the starting point would be for us to ensure that what we produce is not wasted and there's no loss. All right? Finally, we have socioeconomic factors impacting on food systems transformation in this country. There are solutions that lie outside agriculture that can address those socioeconomic constraints in order to be able to remove those constraints impacting on food systems transformation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mekubok. Ms. Agatha.
Thank you. We have a team that I would like to introduce everyone to at the back there, that is led by Dr. Kamau. Just put up your hand. That team there is our team of rapporteurs, and they are capturing everything that you are saying. So your proposals going forward are taken care of. There is a team that is capturing there. That's one. Number 2, the agriculture sector network is committed to a continuous dialogue. And I mentioned that our membership is drawn from associations across all the value chains in this country. That means we are talking about the coconut value chain at the coast, and we are also talking about the palm oils around Lake Victoria counties. We are talking about literally every value chain in this country. And we are committed to monthly dialogues that are going to transform our specific value chains going forward. And we are committed to supporting this conversation going forward on monthly basis. And we would like to see the presence of the private sector, the civil society, the government, and I'm happy that we have Mr. Kubok here, who is coordinating the Agriculture Transformation Office. We would like to see the presence of all the state departments represented, including those that are not within the ministry, that are related to the agriculture sector. We have cooperatives, we have fisheries and the blue economy. Let us start this conversation, and the ASNET is committed to starting this dialogue next month. We can have the first dialogue the coming month so that we go by value chains and look at how we can work. And we would also like to have in this conversation the county governments, because those are really the producers. Let's have everybody on monthly basis. Let's engage on how we transform, not just agriculture transformation, but let's become specific. Value chains transformation for our food systems. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to the panelists. A lot to talk about, a lot to focus on, but very limited time. We're going to take a final photo there, but just as a way of just appreciating the fact that they are here, please let us be all upstanding. Come on, let's just stand a bit as you stretch a big clap towards them. Makofi out of Adali. Thank you so much indeed for your time and engagement. 6 minutes past 4. We may kindly take our seats. We have 2 presentations, then a final panel discussion. Are we taking a photo? Have we taken the photo? Aha, okay. Let's take that photo in recognition of the panelists. Thank you so much indeed. Asante. Makofi out of Adali. And remember, before we leave today, we have a gift for one of you. We'll have a quick quiz at the end, so keep it locked, keep it locked. A gift for you. Ladies and gentlemen, up next, we want to focus on opportunities in African continental free trade area, regional trade, competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk to us about that, please welcome She has progressive experience in international trade for 9 years. She is at the forefront of facilitating cross-border trade and to establish, manage and implement the national electronic single window system in Kenya. Please welcome the officer in charge of Trade Information Portal and Value Add Services at Kenya Trade Network Agency, Kentrade, Jane Musyoki. Makofi tafadhali.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's not the best thing to do, especially to have a presentation after lunch. I would have loved if you'd have given us, not really a music, but something just to make the audience quite vibrant. I'm not the one to do it. John, if you can. Right. Thank you for that. But as we wait for John.
We have one. Maybe you can lead us in this dance that we started. Ehe. Aya, kila mtu tusimame.
Aya.
Aya. Mapeka, mapeka. Now we are following you, Madam Jane. So give us a style, give us a style. Aye, everybody. Bas. Okay, thank you so much. Makofi tafadhali. Madam Jane, thank you so much. Go ahead, go ahead. 10 minutes, please.
Thank you so much. And I think mine will be quite brief, considering the time. And of course, a lot has been said, but this will be focused more on the CFTA. Of course, you may not know, probably you may have heard about Kentrade, but allow me just to introduce who Kentrade is for the benefit of those who are hearing this for the first time. And of course, Kentrade is a trade state corporation under the Ministry of Treasury with single objectives of ensuring that we facilitate trade while we implement the single window system and other digital online platforms, just to ensure that we save on time and cost when it comes to doing business. We've all talked about production, but again, just as the CS said in the morning, we can only produce, ensure that we have enough, and then ensure that, of course, we produce and export to ensure there's exchange in terms of economic development. Who are we in terms of our visions? I mean, why is Kentrade and not just any other institutions? If we are indeed trade facilitators, then we must have a vision. And our vision is making a difference in trade facilitation. A number of speakers previously have spoken about it, and of course, they were not able to tell us, rather they were actually able to connect agriculture and trade. Why am I saying this? Of course, just as the chairman said this morning, Uganda will grow and Kenya will actually consume. That is quite important for us to recognize. And we are talking about the CFTA, then it's very important for us to acknowledge that. I think we're not able to get the presentation, but kindly bear with me. So I'll not get into the background per se on when the CFTA came into force. That was in the year 2019. And of course, with a number of countries onboarding that is within the African continent, we have already 54 countries who have actually signed and come on board just to ensure that indeed the CFTA works. And I believe when I'm talking about the CFTA, which is the African Free Trade Area, we all know this is actually a market for the African continent. Out of the 54 African Union members, only Eritrea has not signed up for this particular treaty. But of course, they have started negotiations, and we're sure with time they'll onboard the same. Of course, then, where are we in terms of the status of this particular free trade area or treaty. In the year 2022, that was last year, of course, we started what we are calling the Guided Trend Initiative. And this, of course, is an initiative with objectives to ensure that we showcase and ensure that we are able to see that within the African continent, then we are somewhere, and indeed, this free trade area is working. But as a nation, then, what exactly are we saying? Are there opportunities for this country when it comes to the CFTA? Of course, if we were to engage on this very vibrant trade within the continent, one, as a country, will boost Kenya's exports to Africa. We all know strategically where Kenya is positioned. We can access the Middle East, we can access the EAC in terms of the trading blocks, and of course with that, after ensuring that we have enough, of course we cannot export if we do not have enough. One thing, and of course from statistics from the single window system, it is very evident that we are importing more than we are exporting. And the other trend initiatives, as earlier alluded to, it is quite not prudent, or it doesn't give me pride, to promote exports through digitizations, and then we leave out the exports. Exports are the backbone of each country. Remember, again, as a country, we are so innovative, and again, we are also blessed differently in terms of business-oriented Kenyans. We all agree to that. And of course, considering our strategic positioning as a country, it is very important to note that, of course, with our ICT hub and, of course, regional trade gateway, then Kenya will stand to boost the services that do come in terms of exports of goods and services. We'll all bear with me that, of course, where we stand as a country, and if we were to leverage on the CFTA, we'll increase on the size of the scope of the manufacturing sector in accordance with Vision 2030, and of course, in alignment with the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. I don't want to dwell on that because the previous speakers have actually elaborated on that. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot forget that, of course, with the CFTA as a new free trade area or treaty, it facilitates integration of the Kenyan SMEs into regional value chains. Madam GM has actually given us a brief on the same in terms how do we integrate and ensure that the SMEs come together just to ensure that they leverage on the existing regional value chains in terms of export or imports for that case. Again, of course, with all this in mind, this will, in essence, increase employment and business opportunities for the growing population. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this is a new baby in the house, and we all agree that other than the Guided Trend Initiative, at the current moment, the phase one of trading in goods and services has already been negotiated and implementation has been initiated. Then where are we? And of course, working closely with ASNET and as from the public sector, and of course being a trade facilitator, at the national level, we've noticed that the protocol on women and youth was left behind. I'm actually putting this with all, of course, with some reservations. I'm not saying that men are not being considered, but of course we all know if we were to check on who is doing business statistically, of course, we all agree with me it's more on men. So there's a protocol that is currently being discussed on youth and women and the digital trade. And then that makes us quite, deliberately get into these talks just to ensure that all the feedback that we are getting from the different value chains through ASNET, then they are not left behind. Ladies, there are different approaches that the government, I know from the previous discussions, is more on, would want to hear more of solutions vis-a-vis what we are doing. But what strategically has been put across by the spearheading committee is that we've come up with a national CFTA strategy, which was launched last year in August, just to ensure that whatever has been put under that strategy is implemented to the core. Remember, this is not a government document, it's a document to be implemented as a partnership between the private sector and, of course, the public sector. Ladies and gentlemen, it is actually through this particular strategy that we were picked to be among the pilots. That is, Kenya was picked to be among the pilots or pilotees for the CFTA. The question I'd want to pose to you is, have you heard about the Guided Trade Initiative? And if you've heard, have you made an effort to get to know the statistics that we are actually trading on? The value chain from tea, from coffee, and of course, from other commodities. Of course, we all know that the president just the other day, actually that was in October last year, was actually, I think is the one who flagged the tea consignment that was ended to Ghana. It took from October, it took 2 months for that consignment to reach Ghana. So what are we saying about the same? We're saying that, of course, yes, we are ready, but there are a number of obstacles that we need to get out of the way if we were to succeed on the low-hanging fruit, that is the CFTA. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say, other than tea, we also exported chloride oxide and ceramic tiles and the energy-saving GCOs. Those reached our destination, that was Ghana, on a timely basis. We were able to supply sisal to Ghana, but unfortunately, we did not meet the quantities, so that was given to our counterparts, that is Tanzania. So what have we learned from the GTI? That we need to establish a Kenya exports trading community, and I thank Anston for bringing the network of the value chains together, because together they can consolidate and ensure that they put their consignments together for the purposes of trading within this particular market. For the interest of times, I want to leave you with this parting shot. We are all Kenyans, and even if we are not Kenyans, there are quite a number of initiatives that have been put across. A number of treaties every day, a number of agreements are being signed by the government, by the president, and of course the respective State Department ministries. Are we taking advantage to leverage on the same? And for this particular one, especially the CFTA, we are all champions of the inter-Africa trade, considering this is within the continent. We can't afford to fail, but as African nations, we need to stand together and ensure that, as our motto reads today, that we are leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much indeed, Madam Jane. Just 2 minutes to respond to a question here, but just to reiterate on what Madam Jane has spoken about, this is a statement by the Secretary General, AFCFTA, talking about the strides that Kenya has made. And this is where you really want to celebrate being Kenyan, because there was a time we were just talking about the AFCFTA as rules and regulations, but now Kenya is at the forefront. Let's listen to that.
Now the trade is happening. We have piloted an initiative which we call the Guided Trade Initiative, where we identified countries, products that were ready for export under the preferences of the AFCFTA.
Right.
For example, President Ruto and I, in October last year, saw off containers and containers of value-added agricultural products, tea, that Kenya was exporting to Ghana.
Wow.
Certificates of origin were issued, but what is the proof of concept, a very compelling proof of concept about that initiative is the fact that the trade that happened was taking place between regions, ECOWAS, EAC,
sure.
East African Community, ECOWAS. It was the North African countries, into Central or West African countries.
So anyway, you get the gist. So thank you so much, Madam Jane. But there's a question here for you, 2 minutes. Question one there. How do we work around reducing imports on food items we can locally produce? Your response? 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you back to our morning session, the opening ceremony, where we were actually given some statistics of where we are awaiting the harvesting of maize. What we have noticed is that we may actually store the same, but again, are we storing for our own consumption or are we storing to export? Are we exporting when yet we cannot feed our own nation? Can we reverence and get to see, as much as we are actually trading, we have enough, or are we also encouraging inter-county, if not the national trading itself? Madam Agatha, again, I would want to refer to her. They've just spoke about the opportunities that lie within the country. Are we going to get out of the country when yet we still have or rather markets within the county? So let's reverence and get to ensure that the modern strategies we are putting into agriculture and giving us Baba harvest, then we can actually save on the same and ensure that we have enough for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause to Madam Jane. Asante Sana, thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, because of time, we have one more presentation, then a panel discussion, then we can head on towards closing. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dominic Menjo. Dr. Dominic Menjo, talking about bottom-up economic transformation, agribusiness agenda, priorities and opportunities. If he is not here, we'll move very quickly to our panel discussion. And if he comes later on, then we'll give him the final moment of today's summit. Coming tomorrow. All right, excellent. So we'll move on very quickly. In light of what we've just heard, we're talking about trade and investments. Trade and investments. And I'd kindly call upon Ms. Lydia Kimani. Ms. Lydia Kimani, please, as the moderator of this particular session. And the panelists, already we've heard from Kentrade, Jane Musyoki, Mr. Ahmed. So there you have the list of panelists, and our moderator will guide us through that discussion. Go ahead. You have a microphone here at the front. It's 25 minutes past 4, so we'll have about 40 minutes. Take it away. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Johnston. You're a very tough act to follow. And my prayer is that I will follow suit. So thank you very much, distinguished delegates. It's a pleasure to be welcoming you for this last panel session. It's a graveyard shift, but bear with me, we are talking numbers. So I hope that is sufficient to keep you alert. So we will have Madam Jane Musyoki from Kentrade. Please welcome to the front. We will also have Mr. Ahmed from Trademark East Africa. Karibu. I had seen him after lunch. So then we are also going to have Mr. There's Leonard from Equity. Then Mr. Andrew Egala will be sitting in for Madam Lucy Musyoki. Andrew Egala. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just Very quickly, Erastus is sitting in also for Leonard. So, and then finally we have, not the least, Mr. Adolfo Alonso with the EU delegation. Last call. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Again, I wish to welcome you to this final session. And there has been quite a bit of discussion. Oh, I see Mr. Ahmed and Alonso. Thank you, Jane. So as they take their seats, there has been quite a bit of discussion this morning with regard to what is ailing the sector. There was the challenge of extension. There have seen issues of food safety. There has been issues of aggregating farmers, and the issues are continued. But the question now we need to look at is, how are we ensuring that trade and investments actually present, provide the opportunity to drive transformation in our food systems? So to help us unpack this, we are going to have a panel session to discuss different opportunities. We have heard about trade facilitation, we have had trade agreements, we have heard about investments in infrastructure to facilitate trade, and most importantly also, we have the issue of finance. So very quickly, I'd like to just have a very quick round of introduction with my panelists. And as they take their introduction, we're also going to look at some of the issues. So very quickly, my panelists, introduce yourselves so that we dive straight into the questions.
Good afternoon once again. And as we've heard, and actually I think I said my name is Jane Musyoki from Kenya Trade Network Agency, a trend facilitator in ensuring that we implement digital platforms to ensure that, of course, we improve on the ease of doing business for this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. My name is Erastus Mudura, General Manager, Business Banking, Equity Bank Limited. I look after how we can facilitate trade also from all sides, all sectors, ranging from agriculture, agribusiness, MSMEs, and we look at the opportunities that we can present to our MSMEs across the region. Thank you.
Asante sana, Erastus.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrew Gala. I'm sitting in for Lucy Michoki. I'm not an ASNET or I'm not a union advisor, but I'm a CEO Green Without Borders. That is a private enterprise dealing in agriculture value chain development. And also we process gluten-free products, that is from climate resilient crops, that is cassava, pearl millet, and sweet potato. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ahmed Farah. I'm the country director for Kenya program at Trademark Africa. I'm also a council member of the National Investment Council. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adolfo Cires, work in the European Union delegation to Kenya, mainly on private sector development programs that they are focused on access to finance for companies. Many of them are agribusiness companies, and many of them are also for export markets. So I think we will have a chance to talk more during the panel about this, but yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alonso, for wrapping that up. So to dive straight into the issues, we are just coming from a session where we have been told about the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. But the challenge has been how many private sector people know about this particular free trade agreement. So Mr. Andrew Egala, as an SME operating in the agriculture sector, we would like to, in 1 minute, just share your experience. What do you know about the AFCFTA, and what opportunity lies in it for the commodities that you're trading in?
Thank you, Lydia. The African Continental Free Trade is something that is nice, is timely, and is good for Africa because, as we say, Africa can fill the world. And not only that, in agriculture, we have the best ecological zones, whereby we have been sending raw materials all over the world. It's a high time, first of all, we process them between ourselves, and then from there, then we can fill the world. So as you ask me about the products that I'm doing products which we call them traditional foods or forgotten foods, which are actually eaten across Africa. That is cassava, sweet potato, and pearl millet. So basically, with the trade barriers open, with the kind of political, obstacles out, I'll be able to export my products in the region and also across the other eight blocks in Africa.
What is your leading destination as you hand over the mic to Mr. Ahmed? What is your leading destination? If you were to export today, what country would that be in the African continent under the AFCFTA?
I'll export to Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. And now we move to Mr. Ahmed. So Trademark East Africa has done quite a bit of investments in terms of facilitating trade, whether it is in developing capacities, investing in public infrastructure. And we want to just understand from Mr. Ahmed's perspective, what has been your experience in terms of supporting the private sector to, in this pursuit, whether we are talking about the public infrastructure, the labs to support quality assurance before goods are traded, and what are some of the challenges you have had as Trademark in doing this?
Yeah, thank you. As you rightly put, as Trademark Africa, we used to be previously known as Trademark East Africa. We've worked very closely with government, private sector, and even civil society in some instances to improve the competitiveness of Kenyan businesses, enhance trade facilitation, and in programs that we have developed and worked with private sector to improve Kenya's business environment. We've worked quite a number of programs with farmers in the agriculture sector, and we've got a program as we speak right now that is funded by the European Union called BIP, which is a Business Environment and Export Enhancement Program, which looks at supporting 3 main value chains: avocado, mango, and vegetables, to enhance their exports markets, but also enhance and strengthen the value chains in the country. And in that program, we are looking at not only supporting the value chains and enhancing the markets for those 3 value chains, but also we're looking at what I call a paradigm shift, support the country move its horticulture from air to sea to about 50% by 2030. And that includes, that will involve a lot of interactions with government, private sector, inject capital from government, private sector capital. So we definitely are looking at an exciting venture, and the experiences that we have that we've experienced in the private sector engagement are quite a number. One of them, which is a major and common one, is infrastructure. Access to markets has been a major challenge, and we have programs that have already attended to some of those. But there's quite a bit that needs to be done still to support access to markets for farmers and enhance trade flows through this road infrastructure. Non-tariff barriers do exist. There's still quite a number of non-tariff barriers, regulatory harmonizations that need to be sorted out, especially now that Africa is coming together as a market. That is going to be one of the biggest hindrances to realizing the dreams of FCFTA. We have also challenges relating to limited understanding and awareness. Like you just asked, how many private sector players do understand the opportunities available under the CFTA, the requirements that are there that need to be the COO, the Certificate of Origins issues. That needs to be, including government. They have to do continue doing advocacy because the owners of these trade agreements are always the government. Okay. Insufficient institutional capacity will always be challenges. How many institutions in the private sector are ready to run the business required of them so that they not only sustain the business but also meet the market demands?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. But just before we leave and move to finance, you've talked about there's quite a bit of work to be done, especially on awareness creation, and seeing that ASNET is a platform that brings together the private sector. Are there opportunities to leverage on that convening power of ASNET to just create awareness on the AFCFTA and subsequently support its implementation?
Indeed, the opportunities are there, and we've had already discussions with ASNET as trademark.
Excellent.
We also have discussions and conversations with other private sector apex bodies like FPIC, FPC, KFC. So that continuous advocacy and interactions needs to continue, and institutions like ASNET have a tremendous opportunity to improve this awareness and understanding. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. I hope, Johnston, you're capturing that the panel session has already one action plan. So ASNET, there's opportunity to drive awareness on the AFCFTA, and Mr. Ahmed has committed to that. Erastus, welcome. And in 2013, I attended...
Agatha is aware of that commitment.
Excellent. Excellent. So ASNET members, we take this up in earnest and follow through that. We get to be sensitized on the AFCFTA and make money out of it. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. So as we move into finance, in 2013, I attended a forum called DGGF, Doing Good Growth Forum. It was, I must have mixed the G's, but it was an initiative of the Dutch Embassy. And this was an initiative to support their enterprises as they come into Kenya to take advantage of the opportunities of investment. So one of the most outstanding issues on from that forum was that once the enterprises identified the opportunity in Kenya, then financing would be extended by the Dutch government to their citizens at 3%. So at that point, if I'm not wrong, our interest rates were about 18%. And the interesting thing is that I realized that if I am an investor and a Dutch investor move into the same value chain, by virtue of the fact that finance was extended at 3% interest, and for me, I'd get financing at 18%, gave disparities in terms of how we would deliver our products to the market. So, Mr. Erastus, agriculture is the least financed sector at 2% according to the ASTGS. We would like to just hear from the perspective of Equity Bank, how are you interacting with the sector, especially with the smallholder farmers, given the level of risk? And also, is there opportunity for trade finance for the agriculture sector to participate in the AFCFTA? Because trade finance has been one of the greatest challenges, especially for small businesses. So how is Equity positioning itself as the go-to financier under the AFCFTA and also for a sector that is heavily underfinanced?
Thank you so much, Lydia, and once again, good afternoon. Yes, there's that question of access to finance, which is a very major question, especially when it comes to smallholder farmers. And I think to put this to perspective is first to say, what is Equity exactly doing to facilitate trade and also to support farmers and to support any agri-related activity? At Equity, we call it food and agriculture. Sometimes we keep arguing which one came first, because it's called the Department Food and Agriculture. And why do we call it that? It's because we want to go beyond agriculture and look at anything to do with food that is as a result of agriculture. And we have come up with a very elaborate plan, which we are calling the Africa Recovery and Resilience Plan post-COVID, or in short, a Marshall Plan. And this plan has come up with 6 pillars. And the pillar number 1 is actually food and agriculture and extractives, because we are operating in 6 countries. And one of the countries is not very strong in agriculture, but very strong in extractives. That's why we have an extension of that pillar, that is DRC. But in agriculture being the first pillar, we are actually focusing by the year 2025, because that is where the 6 pillars we are benchmarking or having our target set as at that date. We want to push or to finance or to push financing or liquidity into agriculture up to 30% of our current portfolio. And you know, Equity being the size it is today is because of the farmers who supported it. And that is one of the ways we looked at ways of sustaining ourselves in terms of food security and also recovery from COVID. And that's why we are saying it's a plan post-COVID, because when people are food secure, then we're able to move on to the other activities. Now, coupled with that, we know that after just doing the primary production activities, that is agriculture and extractives, then we need to do value addition. And we came up with the second pillar we are calling the manufacturing and logistics. In manufacturing and logistics is because after farmers have produced which is the primary activity in Kenya, then we need to do what every other person has been talking about, value addition. We want to stop exporting just raw materials, and we want to create employment. And manufacturing logistics, we have given ourselves a target of 15%. That is what we want to push to manufacturing and logistics by the year 2025. And now to your point is the third pillar, which is trade and investment. Now, trade and investment is because after the farmers have produced, after they have added value in Pillar 2, then they want to expand opportunities. They want to start doing trade across Africa and within Kenya. And we want to facilitate them with the trade instruments. We want to facilitate them with the trade finance solutions and working capital solutions. And it may not go through all the pillars, but there's a very important pillar that is the last one, pillar number 6, that talked about digitally enabled ecosystems. And what we are doing is that we want these farmers to be enabled to connect to the main players within a big ecosystem so that they become formalized. And because we are also focusing on MSMEs majorly because of the way they are the drivers of the economy, then our main focus towards facilitating trade through agriculture is financing the primary activities, value addition, and also trade. There are several activities around that, and one of them is the giving access to the market. And we have recently had several trade missions within the region. We have been partnering with the Trademark Africa. I think 2 months ago we were with his team, and also European Bank. We have been partnering in many aspects to enable the farmers to access or to have their products accessing the market. So the other thing we do is that we have also been bringing on board investors who can invest in some of these SMEs or agri-SMEs or big companies to enable them to access opportunities for either exporting their products or distributing finished goods for investors. In the next 2 weeks, we have a delegation coming from the US, and we are putting farmers together. We're also trying to put SMEs together for them to access opportunities from the investors for either direct investment or through any other method. So agriculture is the pillar number 1 is the foundation. Once we get it right on that one, then it becomes easier to progress to the next ones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Erastus. And I think especially the last point on the brokering of partnerships between trading partners, that's the US and the Kenyan farmers, gives us a very nice segue to Mr. Alonso's intervention. So we come to you, Mr. Alonso. The economic partnership agreement between the EU and Kenya has been something that has stirred a lot of interest, and especially with regard, because it is one of the tools that is implementing the European Green Deal. So there has been trepidation that Kenyan products are going to be subject to the carbon border adjustment measures. But aside from that, what are the opportunities in the EPA from your perspective and from in the context of today's conversation? There's fragmentation, we don't have extension, there are limited capacities, but what are the opportunities in the EPA notwithstanding all the foregoing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, I could expect that question, isn't it? That it was coming. Especially because I think that you maybe know that the signing of the Economic Partnership Agreement, that is what EPA stands for, it took a very long time. It took even, we were talking about it the other day, it took 18 years for several reasons. One is because at some point it was a kind of regional negotiation. In the end, it came back to a national negotiation. But I think in the end it was signed. It was signed for the good of Kenya and for the good also of the European Union, where actually trade is made easier for all of us. So opportunities, many opportunities. You have now access to the European market without tariffs. So all your products that they have been exported to the European Union have no tariffs. And then some of you will ask, well, there are certain products that cannot be imported from the EU to Kenya. That is part of the Annex 2 of the EPA. You can access it. It's actually information that is public. So that was the kind of products that the Kenyan government decided that they should not be imported without tariffs from Europe to Kenya. But focusing on the exports, yes, obviously the opportunities are many. And most probably the people that we are sitting here today, we have our passion on agriculture, but agriculture means in many cases manufacturing, and manufacturing means also trade, and that means also economic opportunities for people, for business companies, and for employees. So that is the kind of focus that we have been doing in the last years, and with the different kind of programs that we have in Kenya.
Okay.
I would like to emphasize as well that we have a number of kind of programs that target different kind of companies, from startups in agriculture to mid-caps, and they are always accompanied by different kind of components. One of them is technical assistance or training of companies, but also access to finance, because access to finance is one of the challenges that companies face here.
Okay.
So from startups, mid-caps, companies are the ones that eventually will benefit from this agreement. This is trade. Trade is done by companies.
So maybe just to, sorry to interrupt, at this point, given that there are ASNET members seated here and they're looking to leverage on that opportunity, does that mean that the EU delegation will be working closely with ASNET to implement the EPA? And of course, in terms of the technical assistance, access to finance, have you formalized this partnership, or is it something that is work in progress?
But we're also already working with ASNET, isn't it?
Okay.
That's why we are sitting here today. Because,
okay.
We work with you.
All right.
I would like to add something as well. I mean, the European Union is not only the European Union delegation. We work more and more as what we call a Team Europe approach, where you have different member states from the EU that they are part of programs, of development programs. So we work with different embassies, different development cooperations from different European Union member states, and we are 28 member states now, meaning that sometimes I even forget how many countries are we now. Yeah, we have all those kind of existing programs from other member states, like for example, and my colleague from Germany sitting here, GIZ is already doing a lot on supporting agriculture, on supporting exports of different commodities, coffee, tea. So it's not only about the European Union delegation as such, that is the one I'm working in, but it's also all the other member states.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Alonso. So members, the opportunities are there, and ASNET is already aligned in terms of being an supporting the implementation. So once again, the onus is on us as members to put the Secretariat to task and understand how our different value chains have been provided for. So thank you very much, Mr. Alonso, for that. And finally, we move to Sirkal. So thank you very much, Jane. Just before we move to Jane, how many have heard of the WTO, World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement? Who has heard of it? Okay, thank you. So Jane, I hope you're already seeing the work is cut out for you. So in 2015, the World Trade Organization membership agreed to have a trade facilitation agreement, and it came into force in 2017. Kenya has progressively implemented that trade facilitation, but we would like to hear from KenTrade. What has been your experience? How has the private sector taken up the implementation of the trade facilitation agreement? And what are the challenges in that process? So very quickly.
Thank you, moderator, and thanks for this opportunity. Just to mention on the WTO and TFA, indeed, it's a treaty or an agreement that has actually seen quite a number of implementation from the government sector. And by this, by all due respect, I'll say that we have an umbrella body that oversees the implementation of the provisions of that particular article, which is the National Trade Facilitation Committee, which the private sector is actually a member. And by extension, KenTrade, of course, in ensuring that we encourage adoption of modern and open transaction processing system, we have been, of course, given the task to ensure that a number of provisions under that particular article are implemented. And by this, we've implemented the single window system, which is on Article 10, and also the Information for Trade Kenya portal, which is on Article 1. Of course, the Information for Trade Kenya portal is to increase transparency and to ensure that there's accountability with the respective traders or regulators when it comes to doing trade. And to want to extend our gratitude to a number of our development partners who have been key in ensuring that a number of these platforms have been implemented. The likes of Timea or Trendmark Africa now, and of course ITC and GIZ. Notwithstanding that, of course, we have seen tremendous, advantages when it comes to doing trade, especially on reducing on costs and time that it takes by embracing those technologies or the platforms. I want to say that in terms of cargo clearance, of course, we have seen the reduction of time, of the cargo dwell time at the port. By when we started, it was 10 days to 1 or 2 days at the moment, but depending on the system that we've integrated with. This is not final. We are working on other modalities just to ensure that, of course, we reduce this to a number of hours for the purposes of ensuring that if you are to export today, then you leverage on the systems that are existing. Working closely with ASNet, we've actually worked with the value chains, and through the trade information portal, we've been able to simplify and work on some redundancies and, of course, complexities that are existing within the trade procedures for the purposes of ensuring that we make it easy for the trader to export their wares when it comes to trade. We will all bear witness that, of course, agriculture is very key to this nation. And when it comes to the exports, especially to the EU market and the upcoming of the CFTA, of course, we have to reverence and get to know what are their market requirements. And, of course, placing this information on an easier accessible platform makes it easy for you at a click of a button just to access the same. But just as the moderator has requested, I know there are a number of challenges and there's much that can be done on those platforms. For example, on the trade information portal, we'd want to have the market leakage. This is a one-stop where we have documented commodities or procedures for commodities for over 100, or rather procedures for over 100 commodities. What do I mean by this? If today you want to start exporting tea, and for one reason or the other you'd want to diversify and get into other commodity, then all the requirements are actually prescribed on a format that is existing at a click of a button. But we're talking about the farmers, we're talking about the SMEs. How many people would actually have the access to these online platforms? So we are working on modalities on how can we get even to mobile apps and just to ensure that this information reaches a wider audience when it comes to traffic. Okay. This is just to ensure that we do not leave anyone behind, and especially what Madam, I think she was asking about the extension workers. We are actually moving from the old way of doing things to adoption of technologies. So we can get to see how we can leverage on what is existing in terms of getting more traffic into these platforms. Then it's going to inform our SMEs and, of course, increase the export for this country.
Thank you very much, Jane, for that update. But I wanted to find out, can this be, especially with the trade portal, given the challenges with the literacy levels in some areas and digital literacy also, how are you looking to address those challenges?
Thank you, moderator.
Very quickly.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, that is very key, and it is a challenge. Currently, we have started engagements or working closely through the private sector and, of course, working with the government, not the government, sorry, but the county government. This is just to ensure that from where the produce is coming, then we get to see, and just as I have said, how it is hard for someone to access the online platforms at the grassroots. Then it will be very important to work closely with the county governments and get to see which other areas or how can we leverage on what is existing other than then coming up with other methodologies on how to access information and ensure that we work closely with the agricultural officers within the county levels to train them and ensure that they disseminate the same information. Again, we've actually embedded the same portal on their websites just to ensure that they are able to pick it up at any forums and engage more audience for the same.
Thank you very much. So we are coming to the close of our session, but I'd like to give an opportunity to the audience to just share or give a question, ask a question, please, just before we wrap up. thank you very much, Jane, for what you have just shared. And perhaps maybe just to address the information asymmetries, this could be one of the nice entry points of strengthening the cooperative movement, because once you do that, maybe this is something that can be embedded in their systems, the InfoTrade, then the portal, and something that can work for many farmers with just one investment. So I don't know whether if we have any questions. Yes, please. Kindly pass the mic to him. Very briefly and straight to the point, so that I don't have Johnston shuffling me out of here with my panel.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. I changed. I know you know me, but I changed. So I will be very brief.
Okay.
I think my question is, you know, when you're talking about trade has to happen between equals. We see a situation in this country where a farmer who has chicken does not have the privilege of eating that chicken because the opportunity cost of eating that chicken is too high. They have to sell it to get money. Don't know if you get it.
Yes.
In that same context, as we sign these trade agreements, how are we making sure that we are not mining food from our communities and leaving them hungry because they have no choice but to sell? I'm trying to be brief, but I hope you get the point. It's a very important conversation that has to happen.
Okay.
Someone was talking about coolers in the morning. You bring coolers to a village, and all of a sudden, children have no enough milk to drink because the parents think that the first priority is to sell the milk. So in the context of that, I'm talking about a very local village level kind of thinking of the situation,
yes.
but apply it now in the context of the trade agreements we're talking about.
Okay.
How are we making sure that people still have enough to eat, even as we trade?
Thank you very much. So I think we'll be getting responses from Alonso and Mr. Ahmed. So there's a question at the end, the hand on that side.
Thank you, Lydia. My name is Philip Pande from the Forgotten Bottom Millions. And so I'll be asking a question relating to the Forgotten Bottom Millions, basically the young people and women, and probably incorporation of the persons with disability.
Okay.
Now, there was an admission by the first speaker, I think it's Jen, that the Continental Free Trade Area has left behind the inclusion of women and the youth. And I think that was also particular to the engagements around Kenya and our strategies thereof.
Okay.
My question to the panelist is, how are we ensuring that our strategies and engagement net the youth who are the critical mass, women and persons with disability, especially in reaping on the gains around the free continental trade area? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we'll have to stop there so that we give time to our panelists to respond and wrap up the session. Thank you very much. So we could start from Mr. Alonso, Mr. Ahmed, and yes, the microphone. Then finish off with Jane on the missing protocol. You could also please share your closing remarks so that
we start from left to right, isn't it?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, on your question, I don't have the answer actually, to be honest. I mean, it's going to be difficult for me to answer that question, but it's very much related to food security, and you know, when it comes to food security, there are also many different opinions, because you can get food security by producing what you eat, or you get food security by selling something and then buying food to eat. So I would say that what we are trying to do when we're talking about trade, it has so many different aspects. Actually,
30 seconds.
It's a pity that we have short time, because there are so many things that we are not going to even talk about. But when we talk about trade, and that is something that we also working together with our partners, in this case, Trademark Africa and some other partners, you're talking about production, you're talking about value addition, you're talking about being able to have quality. So production is very important. I mean, you need to increase volumes to be able to sell more.
Okay.
And that is something that relates to somehow to what you're talking about. I mean, you increase production of different products that you sell, then you will be able to be food secure. You know, so.
Okay.
Again, I tell you, I don't have the answer for what you are talking about. On the case of youth that he mentioned, youth.
Yes.
Youth is very important for many of our programs. I
Okay.
talked before about the startup support to startups. We try to support the startups on agribusiness that one day will become a mid-cap company. Mid-cap means a bigger company that will be able to export.
Okay.
And those startups basically are companies that are being set up by youth. Youth that they see in agriculture and agribusiness a future.
Okay,
so
okay.
Opening for trade possibilities, not only with the European Union, it's also within Africa, as you mentioned before,
Okay.
and also with other countries and other regions. So yeah, youth is key, obviously, yes.
So in 30 seconds, Mr. Ahmed, then
Thank you.
Jane another 30. Proceed.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think the very quick response I have to the question on ensuring that we have enough food before we trade. My response is even selling locally is trading, and imputing efficiency includes addressing the big disease that affects agricultural value chains, and that's post-harvest losses.
Okay.
I believe without even doubling the production, if we sort out post-harvest losses, we will double available production produce for sale. And there are quite a number of initiatives I know that are ongoing, starting on now, that are the conversations that are geared towards addressing some of those post-harvest losses. Some of the poorest counties experience almost 80% harvest loss, post-harvest loss of mangoes. It's very sad. County aggregation and industrial parks, a concept the government is looking at rolling out. By all means is going to address, to a large extent, a lot of that. A lot of our farmers struggle to earn a living from farming because of middlemen, brokers.
We have a minute.
The county aggregation and industrial product parks will, to a large extent, allow smallholder farmers aggregate at the county level, remove the middlemen, and hence attend to both the incomes that they get, but also efficiencies in handling the products.
Thank you very much.
There's no time. As my colleague said here, we can talk a lot more about it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Andrew, in 10 seconds, just give your parting shot. 10, literally, you can see the countdown on the clock.
Thanks, Lydia. Now, for the SMEs and for the farmers, the best route to the African Continental Free Trade Area is by what the government is trying to initiate, the agro-processing zones, which will also feed into the special economic zones at the African level. Even the AU has the common agri-business development parks, which will also feed into the African one. So already the framework is there. So it's up to us to use the opportunity so that we can benefit along other countries as well. Thank you very much.
Asante. Erastus, is there money for us to trade, and especially under the AFCFTA?
Yes.
36 seconds, and you have to have Jane very quickly.
Money is there
Yeah.
on the platforms, and that's why we keep telling you, if you go to *247#, the farmers can be able to access money. You can borrow against that.
Okay.
But the other way we have addressed it, something that everybody has been ignoring, we have tried to protect the farmer, because people are selling, like he's saying, to pay for school. So we are taking bright children to school through Wings to Fly. They are also selling to pay for health care. So that's why we have Equity Afya.
Okay.
Thank you.
Asante. So, a second. The government. We are seeking indulgence. Johnston,
Thank
just
you
2
very
minutes.
much. Johnson, if you can do 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're far too
Yeah,
kind.
thank you. So just to respond on the question on the women and youth, the CFTA is actually being negotiated in phases. And remember, I said it has not fully started the implementation, simply because there are quite a number of countries who are yet to ratify, and of course, put the different machinery in place. That is the framework. So we are done with phase 1, that is on trade in goods and services, as well as dispute settlement. Phase 2 was covering the intellectual property rights, investment, and competition policy, while now phase 3 is the one covering women, youth in trade and digital trade. So yes, that's where we are, and it is important that we also get to know when you're available, if we can get your contacts. When there are those discussions, it's very important for you to join as youth and and women. So I'd also want to say this, indeed, thank you very much, but considering our role in trade facilitation as CenTrade, and with the different platforms that we've already put in place, there's quite, and from what we've actually gathered since early this morning, information is lacking. So it will be very important if we can leverage on the existing platforms and get to see, and especially from our development partners, we have quite a number of innovative ways on how we'd want to leverage on the same and increase especially what the content that is existing on those platforms. And we want to say that it is important to mention that these systems actually do assist when it comes to saving on cost and time. We have done simplification of trade procedures, and this we've actually witnessed a reduction of about 62% of the total administrative barrier that is actually extended to traders. So that means the same is translated into our pockets. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, my panelists. You've done a great job in dealing with a very heavy subject in very limited time. Thank you for your input. I appreciate your participation, and thank you so much. So ASNET, the ball is in our court. For us as members, it is us to put the Secretariat to task and ensure that we have the right information to ensure that there is money in the pockets and development for our nation. Thank you very much. Lydia Kimani signing out.
Ms. Lydia, a big round of applause to the moderator and the panelists. Well done. Let's take a group photo there. Asante sana. Let's take that photo. Let's take that memorable photo. Ladies and gentlemen, don't change that dial on your phone. Keep your phone at hand, because one of you is going home, going to go home with a gift. Winnie, the gift is ready? Fantastic, excellent. So makofi out tafadhali, well done. Good to see you again, Cyrus. Thank you so much. Excellent. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, on your phone, on your phones, on your phones, on your phones, very quickly, by 5:30 we should be done. We should be done by 5:30. Now, there are a couple of questions we want you to respond to very quickly. Then we get to the quiz. So let's have a Menti there. Let's have Menti. Let's have Menti. Let's have Menti. Let's have Menti. Let's move on to the question ahead. Fantastic. Now, this is what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Eyes on the screen. Get your phones, please. This is for everyone. This is very critical. The general manager, ASNET, spoke about a team of rapporteurs. That team is behind there, taking note of every concern, recommendation that you're giving. And this is part of it. Go to menti.com, MENTI.com. Once you're in there, you'll be asked for a code. The code is on the screen. That is 41 94 63 82. And we have a simple question. The first question we're asking is, what are the top 3 constraints to growth in the agricultural sector that you participate in? So take your time, take your time, take your time. Take your time, take your time. This is very critical feedback. What are the top 3 constraints to growth in the agricultural sector that you participate in? Countdown, 11 minutes past 5. Should be done by 5:30. Okay. So we can see the percentages there. Thank you so much. We can see the percentages there. We want to move on very quickly to our next question. Let's move on to the next question. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's move on to the next question. What are the top 2 major shocks that affect actors in the value chain that you participate in? What are the top 2 major shocks that affect actors in the value chain that you participate in? Thank you so much. So I'll do a countdown. Let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Next question. Next question. What are the top 3 nutritional challenges that women and children face? Simple question. What are the top 3 nutritional challenges that women and children face? We want to come up with an action plan, ladies and gentlemen. Your contribution is very critical. All right, because of time, what are the top 3 nutritional challenges that women and children face? We're closing. 13 minutes past the hour. All right, closing in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Next question. Now this is an open-ended question. This is where you take a bit of time to just respond to the question. How can you address food safety in the value chain you participate in? Personal responsibility. How can you address food safety in the value chain you participate in? Training, education, and awareness creation through stable marketing. Good. If possible, you can indicate your name. We'll still appreciate that. But hey, how can you address food safety in the value chain you participate in? Appropriate global gap and post-handling management practices. Improving farmer knowledge on handling food crops, awareness creation to farmers, ensure good soil health, safe warehousing and logistics. Keep them coming, keep them coming, keep them coming, keep them coming. How can you address food safety in the value chain you participate in? We're coming to a close, we're coming to a close, we're coming to a close. Your remarks, your comments are very critical at this particular time. The team of rapporteurs taking notes. 14 minutes past the hour, making sure that we're out of here by 5:30. Fantastic. All right, we're closing. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's move on to the next question. How do you improve outcomes for women and youth in agricultural value chains? How do you improve outcomes for women and youth in agricultural value chains? How do you improve? Affirmative action, women empowerment, capacity building, access to land and finance. Capacity building and trainings address existing bottlenecks, okay. Give incentives, Anita, thank you. We'll take note of that. Give women access to land and finance, inclusivity across the value chain and market systems, keep them coming, capacity building, youth in agronomy practices, deliberately targeting areas in the value chains that are friendlier to them, ensuring that there is equitable distribution of resources. Good. Just about 2 questions, then we close. Then we get to the quiz. This is where one person will leave here with the gift. Next question. What interventions make your sector more climate resilient? 16 minutes past the hour. What interventions make your sector more climate resilient. We want to appreciate that you're taking time to give us this feedback. And we want to say thank you so much. This is how we will make sure that the next summit we come back and we're saying we've achieved this and that. Let's still have Menti there because we want to see how many people are responding. All right. Okay, we're closing. Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? We want to close, we want to close. We started a journey and we are coming to a close. There's a bit of an internet issue. Are we ready with that? Are we back on air? Are we good? Are we good? Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm already being told that the next summit is already set, God willing, next year, 4th and 5th of July. So there is already a timeline where we will sit down and say, we spoke about these ideas. Please remind me your name again. Is it Ilham? Is it Ilham? Ilham. So the questions that you raised, the issues that you raised, God willing, July 4th and 5th, we'll come back here and say, okay, what has happened? What have we done? Okay. What interventions make your sector more climate resilient? Advocating CSA, reducing maturity age for animals through adequate practices and feeding regime. Okay. Government policies, climate smart agriculture. 19 minutes past the hour. Smart technologies, improve water conservation methods and teach them to the farmers. Water trapping and safe storage for irrigation. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Keep them coming. What interventions make your sector more climate resilient? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much indeed for your indulgence thus far. We're closing now. We're closing. Now, let's move to the next phase. This is where you join and you add your name. Because this is where we're going to have a brief quiz. Oh yes, I can see the players are joining. It's a simple quiz. We want to make sure that you leave here with a gift and say, aha, I was part of the third National Agriculture Summit. 2 more people to kick off. Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to kick off. Open the first question. Boom. Let's go. Answer fast to get more points. Simple questions, come on. What date is it today? Come on. I mean, you don't even have to take time to answer that question. It's a very simple question. Let's see the results. Wait. Now, somebody says it's the 4th of July, 2028. We have a serious problem. Oh, dear. Ay. It was a simple question. What date is it today? Okay, don't worry. Let's open it up. Let's see who the big leader is. Okay. Where is Olivia? Olivia Okwapi. Where is Olivia? Well done, Olivia. Ilham. Ilham is there. We're checking you. Kimani. Where is Kimani? Kimani, where are you? Fantastic. Okay, so the battle is on. Let's move on to the next question. 2 questions to get you a gift. Join the game. We're moving on. The first question is done. 2 more questions and we're done. 2 more questions, we're done. We're opening it up. Get your phones. How fast are you? Let's go. Move to the next question. Answer fast to get more points. Simple questions. Come on. What does ASNET stand for? Simple question. Come on. Very simple, you know. Just answer it and you're done. Aha, we're done. We're done. That is it. Let us see the answers. Just wait. Agricultural sector networking. Okay. It's agriculture sector network. At least nobody said agribusiness sectoral network. Okay. Final question. Let's move on. But let's see who's winning here. Ilham, I can see your name there. Ilham, I can see you. All right. Wow. Where's Olivia? It's a battle there. Ilham. The three. Wow. This is a tough one. So let's see. Final question, ladies and gentlemen. Open it. Final question. Join in. Winnie, where are you? Bring the gift. We're ready. Open it up. Final questions, ladies and gentlemen. Final question. Answer fast to get more points. Who is the ASNET General Manager? Come on. We're done. Oh my goodness. We shouldn't see any other name. Oh dear. This is the simplest question ever. And we are done. Let's see. Really? Ladies and gentlemen, it's Agatha Thua, and I'd kindly call her to come to the front together with Dr. Bimal. Please come forward. Wait until we unleash the winner. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner today, first day of the summit. Unleash the name. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the first day quiz. Whoa, let's see. Olivia! Where's Olivia? A big round of applause to Olivia. Thank you so much. Please come forward. The gift is here. And Armin GIZ Kenya, please come forward as well. Armin, please come forward. Let's celebrate Olivia. We want to take a photo. Let's take a photo with Olivia. And there's a gift there. Asante Sana. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of the first day. Tomorrow we meet here at exactly 8:30 a.m. in the morning. Let's take the photo from here. And immediately after this, Dr. Bimal has a surprise visit for us. Oh yes. In the meantime, a big round of applause. Once again, Olivia, thank you so much. And we want to appreciate all our sponsors. GIZ, German Corporation, Asante Sana, Makofi out of Valley, British High Commission, Agra, Elgin, Kenya. We have KCDMS Activities Program. Thank you so much. KEPSA, CAM, KNCCI, SDG Partnership Platform. And right now, I'd kindly request Dr. Bimal, please guide us through. There is a surprise visit. Surprise?
It's a really big surprise. The surprise is we have a cup of coffee outside, something to eat, something to drink. But more importantly, if you turn left and up the steps, we've got a whole bunch of exhibitors there. They really want to shake your hand. You haven't gone to say hello to them. They're feeling a bit neglected. So can you, when you're going out and you're going home, go and shake their hands and look at what they're selling. It'll make them feel nice, please. And they've also sponsored this event. So please do me a favor, have a cup of tea, and then go and shake their hands in the corner, please. Thank you very much. We see you tomorrow all at 8:30 tomorrow morning, please. 8:30, same place. Thank you.